They said football would never belong in America. They said the United States would always be a secondary nation in world football. And for decades, they were right. The United States was never part of the football conversation. Not in Europe, not in South America, not in the global elite circle. But something has been changing quietly, consistently, and most people are still not paying attention. Pause. Because this is not a story about the past. This is a story about what is coming. So stay until the end, because what you're about to see might explain the next major shock in world football. For most of modern football history, the world has had an invisible hierarchy. At the top, Europe's structure, tactics, discipline. South America, flair, creativity, emotion. Below them, the rest of the world trying to catch up. And then there was the United States, a nation of massive sporting power, but not in football. Because in America, football was never the main identity. It had to compete with American football, a national religion, basketball, a global entertainment machine, baseball, a historic tradition. So while the rest of the world built football culture over generations, the USA was building something else entirely. And that created a perception that lasted decades. They don't take football seriously enough to compete. But football has a history of punishing assumptions. The first real shift didn't come from winning. It came from hosting. 1994, the United States hosted the FIFA World Cup. At the time, expectations were low. No deep football culture. No elite domestic league reputation. No global fear factor. But something unexpected happened. Stadiums filled. Television audiences grew. Kids across the country saw football at the highest level for the first time. And even though the USA didn't dominate, something more important happened. Football was introduced at scale. And in sports culture, exposure is the first stage of transformation. Because once a nation sees the game properly, it never fully forgets it. If 1994 was exposure, 2002 was warning. The USA entered the World Cup expected to exit early. No expectations, no pressure, no belief from outsiders. But what happened changed perception. They didn't just compete. They advanced. They reached the quarterfinals, and suddenly the football world stopped laughing. Because this wasn't a lucky group stage run. This was structure starting to appear. Defensive discipline, organized pressing, team chemistry, physical dominance. It wasn't enough to make them champions, but it was enough to change the conversation from why are they here to are they starting to improve? And that question is where danger begins. After 2002, expectations rose, but results didn't match. The USA became inconsistent. Some tournaments showed promise, others showed limitations. They were stuck in football's hardest category, a team too good to ignore, but not good enough to fear. They qualified for World Cups, but they didn't make deep runs. They became predictable, strong physically, organized, but lacking elite creativity, and slowly, global attention faded. Europe moved into tactical revolutions. Spain dominated possession football. Germany rebuilt its system. France built golden generations. And the USA, they disappeared into the background. But behind the scenes, something was changing. While results stayed inconsistent, the infrastructure began to evolve. Youth academies expanded rapidly, investment in development increased, training systems became more European, and most importantly, American players started leaving early to Europe, not waiting, not staying comfortable, but challenging themselves in elite environments. This created a new generation. Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Giovanni Reyna. These players weren't just talents. They were proof of evolution, because for the first time, American players were not developing in isolation. They were being shaped inside the world's strongest football systems. And that changes everything. Today, the difference is visible. The modern USA team no longer plays like an outsider. They play with structure. They press higher. They transition faster. They defend more intelligently. They are not yet elite, but they are no longer easy opponents. And in football, perception matters, because once teams stop seeing you as an easy win, you have already crossed a psychological threshold. Opponents prepare differently. Matches become more cautious. Respect begins to form, and respect is the first step toward fear. The United States has something no other emerging football nation possesses: massive population talent pool, world-class sports infrastructure, huge financial investment power, deep sports science systems, strong youth development pipeline. Most football nations grow within limits. The USA does not have those same limits, which means if football becomes fully embedded into national identity, the growth curve could accelerate dramatically, not gradually, but explosively. So the question is no longer, can America play football? That question is already answered. The real question is, when will the world stop underestimating them? Because football history repeats itself. Every dominant nation was once doubted. Every powerhouse was once dismissed. And every football shock in history started the same way. Quiet development, ignored progress, sudden breakthrough. And if the current trajectory continues, the next global football shock might come from a nation still building its identity in the sport, the United States. If you watch this far, you now understand something most people don't see yet. The story of the United States in football is not finished. It is still being written. And the next chapter could change global football forever. Subscribe for more documentaries like this, because the game is changing faster than most people realize.